Today is May 8th. We're just going to call this two-part. First of all, I want to thank both God and the world of entertainment for giving us him. I know that entertainers come and go, and many of them are as easy to forget as the common cold. Then there are those rare times when an individual comes along and makes such an impression that forgetting them is impossible. This is so very much the case with Mr. Shakur. From the very beginning of his introduction into our life, he has been most impressionable. To a lot of people, he was simply just another rapper. But to those who took the time to analyze him, he was actually not a rapper at all. To many of us, he was a hero, activist, champion, and a narrator of our real life. He was our voice and our motivation. What is most profound is the young man died at the age of 25. I often ask myself, how could someone so young have such an effect on so many parts of the world? All of these years later, he is still highly celebrated and thought of. We must remember how dedicated society is to omitting so many important facts about so many different things. Many of us didn't know that Tupac loved Shakespeare. Of course, we know about every time he became aggressive, but his intelligence wasn't lost on anyone. Mr. Shakur had been so smart and so wise that some people would say it caused his death. He protested America. He came up with slogans such as, "Strictly for my niggas." His rap group was labeled the Outlaws. Their names had been Yaki Gaddafi, named after the Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, Hussein Fatal, from Iraqis Saddam Hussein, Mussolini, from the tyrant dictator of Italy, Benito Mussolini, Khomeini Ayatollah, and he's remembered from the Iranian hostage crisis of 1979, and last, Idi Amin, the third president of Uganda. Somebody please tell me the type of person that would come up with such a concept and do such a thing. A warlord, a mafioso even. He had been born to militant enemies of the state. All of these people have been enemies of America at some point. Somebody please tell me how many people come and make such of an impact on his generation. I gotta say past, present, and future generations as well. Mr. Shakur had been a very avid reader who just so happened to attend the Baltimore School of Arts and took poetry classes at Layla Steinberg. Mr. Shakur also studied political philosophy. I remember him with a cigarette in his ear and holding a beer. Yes, he went to prison. Yes, he did bad things, but who didn't? Some people insist he was just another black male, one who was lost inside of the world of black deficiencies. I'm sorry, people, but that is not the case at all. He screamed aloud many things that most of us wouldn't dare to whisper. Black people have been trapped and restricted to a life of different confusions. There were songs like White Man's World, Dear Mama, and Still I Rise. Songs that were so touching and so true. When I think of him, I'm reminded of Malcolm X. Malcolm had started out young and rebellious, but time allowed him to settle down into his wisdom. Mr. Shakur wasn't given the same opportunity because he wasn't here that long. There aren't so many people that have managed to be so full of compassion for those downtrodden. Now, he wasn't perfect, but who was? What made him so special was the fact that he was so honest, so smart, and so aware. Mr. Shakur had been very courageous with his vocabulary, and America hated that. I will never forget the way that some of the most hardened criminals broke down in tears with the knowledge of his demise. I was just remembering him kissing Janet on the lips, how beautiful they both were. I listened to her recite poems. Both of them were so full of life. It was only a movie, but so much about it was his reality. I remember he shot those two off-duty cops and got off because the prosecutors had no choice. I could go on forever. I just want to say thank you, boss man. I appreciate every breath you ever took. I am only sad that there wasn't more of you. Every day I dream, I wish, I fight, and I think of you. You were nothing less than a young Mandela, young Marcus, and all of those wonderful lions that our race manages to produce sometimes. I love you. I love you forever, sir. Thank you for listening.